Hey, I'm Cameron.
And I'm Jordan. Let's
crash
the
the
mood.
mood.
Alright, today we're going to be talking about Star Wars, given all the news about it.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure people are pretty tired of talking about Star Wars, but...
Oh, well, it's been talked about for a long time. It's still going to be talked about for a while because it's intent on not dying, which we're definitely going to be talking about as well.
So we're going to be talking about this for years.
Oh, yeah.
Because of...
new episodes.
Yeah, because the mouse bought Star Wars, so we're stuck with it.
Yeah, for better or worse there.
Did you ever happen to see that South Park episode where they're trying to prevent Disney from buying Star Wars, and they have like Mickey Mouse going, and he's like chasing them, and he's an insane sociopath. But anyway,
I haven't seen that, but I think I kind of want to see that now, because I mean it goes back to his disturbing roots. Remember, there was a point in time where Mickey was a dick. He milked pig nipples. It happened. You can't undo that. But yeah. So
back to
Star Wars. Yeah. So as many of y'all know, there's gonna be just 3 new chapters, or at least for now.
Okay. No.
Or at least there's gonna be a chapter 7, if nothing else.
Okay. Here's what Disney recently said. Here's how it's going to go down. Starting in 2015, there will be a Star Wars movie every year. Now, they're going to alternate between doing an episode of the new trilogy and a spin-off movie. Now, no one knows what these spin-off movies could be. It could be a spin-off movie about Yoda's rise to being a Jedi. It could be a Boba Fett movie. It could be about completely new characters. It could take place between episode 3 and 4. We don't know what's going to be about for the spin-offs. But apparently, episodes 7, 8, and 9 are going to be going to take place after episode 6, and we'll get into that later.
Yeah,
we'll discuss that later. But we want to I guess we're gonna discuss our feelings on the first 2 trilogies.
Yeah, the good, the bad, the ugly, and we'll start going with the original trilogy. I mean, we had some discussion of whether or not we were going to go in order, but it made him kind of make sense to see where it all started and then where it got to. And we'll talk about the original trilogy, the newest trilogy. Well, then we'll talk about some extended universe stuff like that, like video games, books, some slight discussion on the comic books perhaps. And then we'll get into a little bit more about our expectations about the new stuff. So, with that being said, let's start with the original. Let's start with
starting with
episode 4,
A New
Hope.
It was not originally titled Episode 4, as a lot of people know.
Yeah. It was just Star Wars.
Which is a big deal, because that's the difference between a planned trilogy and something that came later.
Yeah.
Now, he said he originally titled... Well, George Lucas claims he originally titled it Episode 4, because he wanted it to be a reference to, the old, campy sort of sci-fi... classics of his youth.
He also claims he's sane, so I didn't say much.
Okay, we don't want to get into too much George Lucas hate on this.
And we won't! Because if we did that, we'd be talking about this forever.
It's been discussed ad nauseum, and to be honest, a lot of it's gotten kind of it's gone kind of overboard for me.
That's all fine to get. I just like to point out that doesn't mean anything to me about that. So, I won't go too far in it, but that had to be said.
Alright, okay.
So, yeah, we'll be at it for days, so...
Okay, so what are your opinions on Episode 4?
Honestly? I'm not really a big fan of 4. I mean, it has some good moments, sure, and without it, couldn't have other movies, but for me, it was only an okay movie.
Episode 4 is my favorite. It's the original trilogy.
Okay.
Which means, I guess, it's my favorite of all.
Oh, really? Episode 1 didn't grab you?
Okay.
Nah.
We watched a lot as kids.
Yeah, what the hell was that about? I'm pretty sure we watched it at least 10 times.
Okay, but
that was weird.
Episode 4 is the only one of the original trilogy that's a standalone story, really. Episode 5 and Episode 6, you don't appreciate it unless you've watched Episode 4 and 5.
I still don't appreciate it. But yeah, you can go on.
Episode 5, there's no resolution. I remember watching the movie and going that's it. That's alright, Jordan. You can sneeze.
It's cool. It just kind of happened.
Yeah, you're kind of sick there, but
I'm sick. It's just allergies. But hey, ever since huh? No, not that. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
Okay, so you know I'm a big fan of war movies.
Yes,
I like the classic war movies, Midway and all of those. You know, Tor, all those movies, and basically like for the last like 30 minutes, you know, the assault on the Death Star, all that stuff. That's basically just the classic World War II movie. That's all it is, really.
With lasers.
Yes, with lasers and a Death Star.
Yeah, there you go.
You know, instead of like attacking a Japanese aircraft carrier, they're blowing up the Death Star.
Yeah.
So that you know that's up my alley. I like that, and you can tell where he modeled the footage of like the aerial combat and stuff off of, you know, World War II aerial battles and all that stuff.
Yeah. Fair enough. And I will say this to its credit, like I just had, even though like overall the movie was just okay for me, it did have like a very, very, I don't know, it was the feeling behind it, you know? Well, very odd, different feeling, surreal in its own right. Yeah.
Well, there's kind of like a saying in like the movie industry, like nothing will ever top your first movie. And I know that's not George Lucas's first movie, but it's kind of like the first, you know, experience jump into the pool of the Star Wars universe. And so in a way, there's kind of nothing that tops like the newness, the like excitement, and of like of the first thing there. You're not regurgitating the same stuff over and over in the universe. Kind of like, you know, oh, another assault on the Death Star. We've seen that before.
Oh yeah, we're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to 6. Oh hell yeah, we're gonna get to that.
It had awesome characters. You know, you had Han Solo. He went through his thing where he redeemed himself at the end. Everyone had a thing going on here. Everyone was useful. They had great lines. They had great lines. Who wasn't useful?
C-3PO. He's never useful.
I'm sure he did some
he did nothing.
He did some translations, I think.
Barely. Go on though.
There were some.
You said there was good lines.
Yeah. You know, Vader became a much stronger villain in Episode 5. He was kind of a bitch in Episode 4.
A bit. I mean, he wasn't even at this in 4, right? I don't even think he was really second in command. He was kind of like tied for second in command, and then again, like what was it, Tarkin? Is that what it was? General Tarkin, whatever. Admiral Tarkin?
Wait,
whatever the fuck
Tarkin.
it was. Yeah, it was Tarkin. Something in Tarkin. Tarkin wasn't even scared of him. And he's like, you just saw this dude force choke a bitch, and you're not scared of him? What does that say about his position?
I can just imagine some guy who's like some Star Wars fanboy listening to you mangled Admiral.
Yeah. Oh my god, he's not saying Tarkin! But yeah, so I mean that was kind of disappointing. But I mean we all know how it got to be. Like eventually Vader just used the breakout character of that, I feel. And so of course if you're watching the other episodes first, you're gonna be like, why the hell is he being like the Emperor's little bitch boy? But then you don't really hear that much about the Emperors. Like, okay,
there's another thing about Star Wars Episode 4.
Yeah.
Okay, probably because it's the first movie. It's the movie that like everything, all the little interesting background stuff that all the rest of the movies feed off of is in Episode 4. Like, there's not, like, you get the little tidbit about the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
And you're like, man, that sounds badass. I want to watch some Clone Wars shit.
Yeah, they fucked it up, but yeah.
And you hear little bits about, like, Anakin, your father, he was an awesome pilot. You're like, man, I would love to see that guy's adventures.
And then they fucked it up.
And so you build up a bunch of adventures in your mind. There's a bunch of stuff. You hear about Jedis. You hear about all this stuff. You imagine all this little stuff that's coming from this one movie. All the little background stuff. Now, I'm not sure there's anything in the other movies that make me think, I want to hear that story. I'm interested. I'm imagining this little background war. Or I'm imagining this character's life. I'm not sure that's in any of the other episodes, including 5 and 6. Because, like, I don't want to learn about the Ewoks' background.
There's God, I had a TV show. Son of a whore.
I guess, like, the only thing would be, like, I'd want to hear more about Lando Calrissian and what he did in Cloud City, but that's Not, but I can't. But that's why I like Star Wars Episode 4 a lot.
I mean, it started a lot of stuff. So it's one of those things where like I could watch it and be like, huh, you know, you look back and like, it's interesting. It just wasn't my favorite. Because I mean, there were some parts that were like boring for me, and I admit I do like a little bit more of the focus on the lightsaber stuff and more about the mythology of the Jedi and all that. So, I mean, some stories featuring that they do ring a little bit more for me. But I see your point, like with some of the old school World War II sort of battles, a lot of setup for future stuff. It's good to see where it all began, and you can only imagine what it must have been like at that time, you know. So, did you have anything else to say before?
I guess there's some things I don't like about it. Like there's some unnecessary scenes. Like a lot of people pay tribute to like the trash compactor scene, but I just felt that was unnecessary. It's kind of boring.
Yeah.
It felt like just like a thing, like an action filler thing that they could do for cheap.
Yep.
But I mean, like, a lot of people have studied Episode 4 because there's a lot of good filmmaking in there. Like the famous first shot where the Star Destroyer is chasing Leia's spacecraft. That's one of the most studied film shots ever.
Mm.
So there's a lot of good stuff if you're into filmmaking and, you know, studying things like shots and, you know, setting things up. And I'm not really into all that, but I've read a couple books on that. But yeah, so let's get into Episode 5.
Let's. Now see, whereas 4 is your favorite Star Wars movie, Episode 5 will be mine. And a lot of it is because they do get more into, like, you know, the Jedi, Sith, things of that nature. You get to see more of Vader. Although, I will say right off the bat, one of the things, like, one of the good things actually is one of the bad things. Like, one of the good things is you get to see, again, more like Vader's power and things like that. But, same time, since you're seeing that, you're like, God, why are you such a bitch boy sometimes? But, yeah, so...
But they don't actually call him Sith in the movie.
They don't, but...
They do it in some other stuff.
Yeah, they do it in other forms, but they never really get to it in that. So even though they don't get to it in that, you know, it's like, you see a little bit more about it. And I actually, like, one of the things was it was a lot darker than Episode 4, which is saying something because it's not like 4 was the lightest movie when you stop and think about it. But one of the things I liked is, like, I guess, okay, I'm not really a big fan of Luke, I'm not, but I like that he had to go on his journey to get more power. And he was trying to learn more about the Jedi way. I mean, he lost his old mentor, and he has to take on the Emperor in the Empire and all that, even after destroying the Death Star. So it's like his journey is far from over. But I mean, things did not go as planned, and I like seeing Vader do his own thing. And that whole last sequence was just, it was full of darkness, full of just great moments. It had an epic feel. And even though you don't like the fact that it doesn't have like a hardcore set resolution, I kind of resent that. Not so much because it doesn't, just because like I was alright with how it ended. It was very unhappy. Things were uncertain for them. I mean, you knew they were going to do another movie, sure, but it's just like, wow, that did not go well. And I like that it didn't go well. And I give major credit to the lightsaber fight. I mean, the one in 4 actually was more decent than I remember, you know? But, like, in 5, it was also decent, and I like seeing, the way the Force was used. It was used in some different way that you don't really see in a lot of other movies, you know? Because, you know, Vader's tossing things using the Force at Luke while fighting, barely, you know, moving to do that. So that was cool to see. And it had Lando Calrissian just doing his thing, although he kind of bitched out there to the Empire, but at the same time, you're like, he's got a lot of people depending on him in the Cloud City for all that other stuff. So it's like the rebels, yeah, you count them as the good guys, but it's like you got other people just trying to live their lives, trying to do their jobs, and they get screwed over when they're taking risks like that too. So you can understand their side too. And it's not like the rebels were really hardcore good guys, but you can't actually say the Empire is, of course. I mean, it's called the fucking Empire. So I mean, it's just interesting to see the other sides because, like, well, they can't just screw themselves over because you were just trying to make a point.
Well, about Empire. one point about this, like Empire only became I think it's only became a negative term after World War II, when a lot of people were criticizing like colonialism and stuff like that. But but about the ending of Episode 5, it just left me feeling empty.
I know,
and I
like that.
I know that's what they were going for, but I
Were you just not a fan of that sort of thing?
Yeah, I like those moments. Like I mean, I enjoy a movie like that every once in a while, but it's not going to be it's not going to make it my favorite movie. Like my favorite movies are the ones where there's something like epic at the end, and there's like some major accomplishment or feat, like at the end of Episode 4 with destroying the Death Star. So Episode 5, there's a lot of good characters. You get the introduction of Lando, which is probably the only... Is there any other characters that are good that are introduced in Episode 5?
Not good. I mean, it is debatable, because, I mean, Boba Fett was in there, but I don't count him as good, but a lot of people... I'm just going to say it, they ride his dick is what that is. It's like, I'm not a fan of Boba Fett, though. There's
been the backlash to Boba Fett over the years. There's been, like, okay, after... For a while, there was, like, Boba Fett's, like, Batman, and everyone's like, Boba Fett's awesome.
Yeah, I don't get that.
He became, like, the Batman of the Star Wars
universe. I never got it.
And now people are back, there's a backlash against that, where it's like, fuck Boba Fett. What did Boba Fett actually do?
Exactly, but I've always been of that, like, school. It's like, I never got what is important. I never watched the originals and saw Boba Fett. I'm like, oh my god, this guy is so kick-ass. His armor's not that great. He does absolutely nothing. And he goes on like a little bitch. That's what happened.
Well, I guess it's Episode 5's credit that it realizes that it shouldn't expand the characters and that should just focus on the core that it has.
Yeah, it didn't really add a lot with that.
And it should just develop the characters they did have.
Yeah, and I mean, and the only other like really major character that got introduced was Yoda. He's not like a good character in my opinion.
Of course.
Yeah. They introduce him and he's just like this crazy old man just chilling on a planet. And then you find out, he kind of ran like a little bitch in the trilogy. Granted, he's going for his own life. It's like, dude, come on.
Okay.
I know. I said, I know. I said he was going for his own life, so you can understand that.
Okay,
we'll get survive, but yeah, we'll get in that later too. But yeah, so you got Yoda, you got Lando.
I like the scenes where he's training him.
Yeah, they weren't bad. It's just like interesting and kind of surreal because there's the one where he's in a cave and he thinks he's fighting Darth Vader, and then he decapitates him. Which, by the way, it was like, wow, they weren't there. He decapitates him though, and he sees that he's Darth Vader and that. So it's like
that was kind of
blatant with the symbolism there, but it was entertaining,
One of the weaker scenes in that movie was the part where they're hiding in the asteroid field. And that felt kind of like filler because it's like, all right, we need to go back to the Millennium Falcon while Luke's doing his thing, and we can't have them reach Cloud City yet. So let's have some filler in here.
Yeah.
Oh, and then that reminds me, since you mentioned Millennium Falcon, Han Solo and the Carbonite. I just like that whole line, he's going in, and it was totally like just Harrison Ford doing what he wanted with it. Just like Leia tells him that she loves him, he's like, I know. It's like, God, you're an asshole.
That's a badass line.
Yeah, it is. It's like, wow, yeah, going under Carbonite, and you go out saying like that. It's like, damn, dude. It's cold. That's ice cold. As cold as you're about to actually be. Yeah, how about that? But yeah, overall though, I thought it was a pretty solid movie and my favorite of the trilogy, and probably overall. So
yeah, I'm saving the I know line for a special occasion.
Yeah, that's not gonna go well. You realize that, right? But yeah, it's just like I feel like the stakes were high and everyone like lost something in that movie, and it's just like it ended with the heroes just not winning that one. So I mean, I thought that was good. I thought it was entertaining. And even though, like, you felt like Luke actually did accomplish something in his training, you knew he wasn't anywhere near done, and he got smashed. And then, of course, there's the big reveal that Darth Vader is, in fact, Luke's father, and his reaction to that is just hysterical. It's like, no!
If there's one thing that I think Episode 5 sets the series up for
What?
future failure, and that's making the Jedi the end-all be-all.
Yeah, because that's where you start to see that they're really powerful. And the fourth one is like, yeah, they have power, but you get a feeling that most people believe this power to be myth, or they haven't seen it in person, or it's like so diluted that it doesn't matter.
Well, my problem with making the Jedi, like, I understand they're important, but making every story revolve around them, like, I feel like the Star Wars universe could be so much more interesting outside of just the Jedi. And the basic evil versus light, dark versus light side, and all that stuff. And
Yeah, I get why you think that, but I mean, alright, so even though I see your point about making that universe more potentially interesting, based on the, not having so much in the Jedi, I think that only holds up for some things in the movie, or at least the execution. Because I feel like if they had more about the Jedi and they did it in an interesting fashion, it could have been a lot better. But I mean, I also think there's a rich mythology there to explore, and then you have things that I'll talk about a little later, like Knights of the Old Republic, where that is largely about the Jedi and the Sith and their background, and that does an amazing job. It grips you, it pulls you in the story, you get interested.
one thing about that, how many
Shapes the
people in the
universe.
party are actually Jedi?
Not that many, but it's true. You have like a couple. It's kind of split because depending on how you want to do things.
How many of the main characters are like Jedi in the prequels?
Okay, there's a shit ton.
Okay, see, that's my thing.
So I mean, I get your point. It's more varied, but it's more about how the Jedi and the Sith shape the universe since they're so big. But in the prequels, I guess it's different. It's supposed to be a small scale. But go on.
Well, yeah. Well, I feel like in the original trilogy, it's more about everyone, while in the prequels, it becomes like just Jedi versus Sith, and everyone else just happens to be there. But yeah, but about Episode 5,
Okay, fair enough.
it does a good job of introducing like the basics of the Jedi mythology, but I think like that kind of like you get too much of a good thing
Yeah.
later.
They kind of overdo it.
So I'm saying like you see the seeds of future destruction planted in Episode 5.
I see your point.
Yeah, and this was written by Lawrence Kasdan, who's a frequent writing person for screenwriter for George Lucas, and I think he did a good job on it. And this wasn't directed by George Lucas.
I think that honestly helps. Not just the passion. I mean, it's just like other people get involved, more time to like edit. I mean, more people editing isn't always a good thing, but in this case, I think it prevents him going a little crazy with his ideas. But yeah, overall though, I mean, I really enjoyed that movie, and it was my favorite of the trilogy. And I guess that would probably make it my favorite overall, just like 4 is your favorite overall, because we'll get to the trilogy soon enough. So,
There's one little fact I like to point out about the original Star Wars contract. Now, George Lucas chose not to get a directing fee for the movie. In exchange, he got what was brilliant in retrospect. He chose to get all the merchandising rights for Star Wars. Now, I think that plays a big part in what Star Wars becomes later on.
Yeah.
So I think it's important to point out that little detail because it's brilliant if you think about it. The machine where you're basically trying to sell toys, that wasn't as big back then.
No, it wasn't.
But George Lucas had the foresight to see what it was what world we were heading toward.
Yeah, it wasn't just toys. There's so much Star Wars merchandise. And then you have you have books, you have toys, you have all these different items that are Star Wars related. And of course you can't forget about the lightsabers. Yeah. So I mean, come on, who didn't have a lightsaber growing up? But
I don't think I did, but
you did have a lightsaber. Was that just me?
I think that was just you.
What was you? Didn't you have a red one?
No, I did not.
Are you sure?
I'm pretty sure you just had one.
I had a green one.
Yeah, you had a green one.
Yes, I did. Got taken away.
I don't remember having a red lightsaber.
Maybe
It's probably why I didn't get one was because you screwed up screwed it up for the both of us.
And by me screwing up, you mean you screwing up by not moving out of the way. Come on, man. If I see a lightsaber come to me, I move. You stay. Just saying.
Yeah, whatever.
Saying.
The changes the fact that you're a jerk. But,
I don't think I'm jerk about that. Come on. You stood still while I'm swinging a lightsaber around. But, yeah, so he did have some foresight, and that might have been detrimental to later movies because of that sort of thing.
I feel like this is turning to an autopsy of the prequels, and I don't want it to become that.
Yeah, because we're gonna say our views on that too. But okay, let's go into episode 6. Let's talk about that for a little bit. Alright, I mean, I'm gonna already say I don't like him. I'm gonna get into that a little bit, but what do you think first off? Let's go.
Okay, first off, I'd like to say something about what they might have been.
Okay.
Okay, so episode 6.
Yes.
There was a couple ideas. First of all, the original idea was that there would be no Ewoks, but it would have been Wookiees, which would have been much better.
Yes, it would have been.
It makes much more sense from an initial script point of view of, I can believe a Wookiee army taking down the Empire.
Yeah, they're kind of badass, you know?
I can believe a bunch of giant bear-like creatures, decimating an army in the woods by ambushing them. I can believe that. That's believable. I can't believe Ewoks. There's another thing. Harrison Ford really wanted Han Solo to die in that movie. It didn't get done because they didn't think people would react well to it. But
people react well to Ewoks. Go on.
Alright. So you knew somebody you knew, okay. One thing I liked about the Harry Potter finale was there was real consequences at the end. People died. You felt like they had just been through a war. That's also what I liked about the initial Star Wars, episode 4, is it felt like an actual war. And
hence the title.
Hence Star Wars. But then, like, episode 6, Darth Vader dies. But it kind of felt like he couldn't just go over the good side. He either needed to die or just stay a bad guy.
Yeah.
So his only way out was to die. So no one felt bad about that. There wasn't any weight to it. So that's a big thing. That's a big thing weighing in my mind when I'm thinking about what it could have been. I think that's what a lot of people think about when they think of episode 6. They're thinking about
the potential
instead of what it actually was. They're thinking about episode 5 and what it set it up for. They're thinking about the epic finale it could have been
and how they botched it.
So, okay, so you can get into what your problems are.
Okay, I'm just gonna get this right out there. Okay, I don't like the Ewoks. I really don't. They're obnoxious, and like you said, I don't see them taking down the rebel forces. But it wasn't just that. It wasn't just one thing. I mean, I feel like from the moment it started, the moment it ended, it was just like, I could not get excited about it. Like, for one, I wasn't a big fan of the way they brought Luke out. It just seemed so superficial, so fake. The way he's like, suddenly like, I'm a Jedi Master. I'm wearing black, so I'm cool now. It's like, I'm not buying that. And so I didn't like how they set that up. And the eventual later confrontation with Vader was a bit weak. And I felt like the whole, rescuing Han, getting that done, it's like, it was really typical. It's exactly what you expected. And all the seriousness that have been set up in the last 2 movies just kind of get stomped on in this movie because they want to have a happy ending. And I didn't like Vader turning good at the very end. I didn't like that at all. And I mean, I feel like, some people might like it because they're like, that's kind of cool. Like someone turning good at the last moment because they care for their kid. But it's like, we're talking about a guy who's killed a lot of people directly and a lot of people indirectly. And at this point, he's cut off his son's hand, he's tortured his daughter, he's killed a shit ton of people. He was A-okay with billions of people getting blown away. He did nothing to stop that. So after all of that, he gets to be redeemed just because now that he sees his son's in danger by the Emperor, he wants to change. Like, no, unacceptable. And even though, Palpatine's a pretty crazy guy, and I like how crazy he can be sometimes, I don't feel like it was the strongest in this movie. I felt like he was just sort of there, just being evil to be evil, and there's a time where you could do that, and it's done well, but I feel like within the rest of that whole movie, it's not done well. I don't feel like a lot's done well. And I think part of that is because you knew it had the potential to be great. And they settled for a lot of things. They did a lot of silly things. It felt more episodic, and I feel like that'd be a problem that would later show up in episode 1. Yeah, I know it is, but you know what I mean when I say that, and I get your point. But it's just like, it definitely felt like one, you know? It felt silly, gimmicky, and I felt like it would later be like the forerunner for some of the stuff that you see in the prequel. I mean, yeah, it seems like we're bashing that a lot, but there's some problems with that. But when we do talk about those, I will point out some good things that I do like about that too. But yeah, so I guess my whole thing with 6 is, yeah, it did have potential to be great, and they squandered it. And it's just like 4 set up a lot, and 5 used it.
Okay.
5 set up a lot, 6 didn't.
Okay, just imagine that scene where Anakin's being tempted to the dark side to attack Vader. If instead of it was just his friends being threatened, it was Han Solo had just been killed, his best friend had just been killed, and he was angry. Wouldn't that scene have so much more weight to it? Wouldn't you be like, beat his ass, Luke? Beat his ass. And like, wouldn't you feel like a little temptation towards the dark side yourself? Wouldn't that scene have had so much more weight? And that's harping back on the potential. But
that's a big part of it, because you felt like it was more simplistic in its nature than the other movies too.
And I think that's going to weigh over every Star Wars movie since Episode 5. Every Star Wars movie will hang over the potential of being, well, you could have made another Episode 5, but you failed. And Okay. I'd just like to go back to the beginning of Episode 6.
Yeah,
okay.
go on.
So we start off with Luke being a Jedi Master. Well, he's not in a way. He doesn't really become a Jedi Master until he's conquered the dark side at the end.
So
Now,
whether or not that makes you a Jedi Master is a completely different thing.
okay, well,
Count
my
Dooku
problem
was a Jedi Master, I'm just saying, as well as the later Sith Lord. But yeah.
my problem with it is that we were watching this guy's journey to become a Jedi Master, and then it's like, oh, we skipped the part there.
He just sort of rolls up and he's like, oh, I'm a Jedi Master.
There's no flashbacks or anything. It's kind of like, oh, well, we missed that part. Well, okay. And, you know, he got his own, he made the lightsaber.
Yeah, he did.
And it's like, well, we missed it. Like, that's what we wanted to see. We want to go, that's why we started on this journey. We want to actually see him become. And now it's just like, it's like, I wanted to have that, even if it was just a training montage, I wanted something. But also, the first part of that, it goes back to also Episode 5. They had to do something with Han Solo that felt like a tangential journey. And that's another thing back to the scenes of Episode 5. You know, it's cool having Han Solo sent off, but it felt like they should have put that somewhere on the journey towards facing the Empire. But that felt like, you know what, we need to stop the Empire. Let's go on this little side journey here.
Yeah.
And that's fine for a TV show, but in a movie, you're like, okay, let's go on the side journey on Tatooine for like half an hour. Okay, cool. Now let's get back to the main plot.
And that's just irritating, because this is a movie that a lot of people paid a lot of money to see, and you had 2 movies backing it that built it up like crazy. I would have been fucking pissed if I saw that shit in theaters, you know? I'd be like, what the hell is this?
To be honest, I probably would have liked it, but back then, but
maybe back then, because people like some silly shit, but it's like, I don't know, I couldn't like it. I didn't really like it when I originally saw it as a kid, let alone now. Yeah, go on.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of cultural stuff that's seeped into it, like, you know, the Rancor and, you know, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But you know, I think it's anything that Star Wars has seeped into culture, just for the fact of being Star Wars.
Yeah.
But that part with Tatooine, I think, just derailed a lot of momentum.
Yeah.
And then it's like, yep, let's go on the side journey and get the team back together. Well,
do we really need it?
Thanks for wasting our time with that. Like, did any of the characters grow because of that little side journey?
No. Not a single one.
You know, did Luke learn something from this?
He did not.
Did Leia learn something from it?
Absolutely nothing.
Did Han Solo learn something?
Hell no, he's on Solo.
Did C-3PO learn something?
He doesn't learn anything. But no.
I think Boba Fett learned not to turn his back.
He can't learn that if he's dead.
Well, remember, he's going to be in there for a long time.
Yeah.
A lot of people made jokes about that.
Oh yeah, there's that. Let's hope he learned that.
He's going to be in there for quite a while.
I guess. Like, Oh wow, yeah, that's pretty bad. Oh, but you know, I mean, we can't talk about episode 6 and forget to mention one major thing. Okay, so we were talking about potential. We're talking about this and we're talking about that. I thought one major thing that was just irritating is the inclusion of a second Death Star. It's like, what the fuck is that? You know?
It was a
weak.
major mistake.
Yeah.
They couldn't even like change the weapon, you know.
Yeah, that was bad. Because it's like, we already had this. We had this in 4. And, you know, you can't redo it. You can't do it like you had it in 4, you know? You can't have that. They already had this, like, epic victory where they defeated the Death Star, which is insane. So it's like, to have a second one, it just kind of diminishes it a little bit. And it shows that the Empire doesn't learn. You can't take them seriously. You can't take anyone seriously in that movie. Because, like, people are just being good to be good or evil to be evil. There's nothing really backing it.
Yeah. I feel like, I imagine, like, if there weren't the prequels, we never really got any reasoning behind the Emperor's view.
Yeah.
It was more like, I'm evil, which is alright in some cases.
In some cases, if it's done right, it's all about execution.
He was one of the best parts of the prequels, though. But
yeah, because they just, like, they made him over the top insane. Especially by that third one. He's just like, ah!
Yeah, you can tell the guy's like, screw it.
Yeah, he just has the phone. He's like, I've been in this thing for a while. I'm just going to go all out.
But,
you know, because the guy who played him later, he played the original Palpatine. So he's been in movies for a while.
But one thing I never got why they never really got into it was like, this is a galaxy at civil war.
Yeah.
So it should be like brother against brother, you know, alien race against alien race. Like shouldn't there be like more of this like tension, you know, like shouldn't there be more like this tension that, you know,
there should have been, but they never really touch on that. And then you have the whole, like, when you look at the Rebel fleet, right? I mean, they're big, but compared to the entire galaxy, they're actually quite small. And I'm sure there are people that sympathize with them, but it's never really, they never get into who those sympathizers are. And they never get into any reach deep arguments about that. They never do.
Yeah. I guess they expand on that, some of the expanded universe stuff.
Yeah, but some of that we'll get into.
But unless I've seen the movies, it doesn't count.
Yeah.
But
shit.
So what did you like about episode 6? Just name something you like from episode 6.
I like that they had the green lightsaber for the first time.
That's all you got from it.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, the fight for a while wasn't bad between Vader and Luke, but it wasn't my favorite part. Overall, I mean, I really didn't like it. I didn't really see a lot of parts that I did like. I mean, it was just like, it's okay. It's kind of boring and kind of drag. Well, I mean, if I have to honestly try to think of it, I'm like, I am having difficulty with it.
See, the thing is, like, I don't hate it. It's just...
You don't like it. You don't feel anything?
It's just like, I can take it or leave it.
Oh, yeah. So, I mean, was there any particular part that you actually, like, really liked or kind of jumped out at you?
I like the idea of Luke finally being cool. I don't like the execution of it. I like the idea of saying, like, he's just kind of this awkward kid from the first movie, and he managed to get lucky, but now it's more like, it's no longer luck. He's actually become what he set out to be. And, yeah, I guess I like that idea, but...
Not the execution.
Yeah, so that's my feelings on episode 6. I don't think we have anything really more to...
No. We kind of pointed out some parts that we didn't like and tried to find something.
It was probably the most merchandise... It was definitely the most merchandise intent
because,
of the original trilogy.
A lot of toys sold about that. A lot of unfortunate Ewok business. There's even an Ewok show. It's just like, God, it's awful. Awful. So, yeah. So, overall, original trilogy, even with 6, is still pretty strong. Maybe not as strong as we would have liked to have thought. Like, maybe, you know, like, looking back on looking back, it's probably not the greatest trilogy of all time, but it's pretty solid. And then let's get to the prequel. And I mean, obviously there's going to be some things that come across as us bashing it. It's unavoidable. There's some serious flaws, but we'll talk about it just like the good and bad and with that. And we'll start right off. So 1. Okay, so we start with Anakin as a kid in this movie.
I think they made a major mistake by not making him a teenager.
Fair enough. So let's talk about your feelings about that movie as a whole anyway. So you start with that. You didn't think they made a mistake, and I gotta say I probably agree.
I
feel like
I feel like we're just Monday morning quarterbacking for like everything in like all the prequels. That's all we're gonna be doing.
Mostly, but like I said, there are some parts that I like, and we could talk about some potential, because by the time we get to 3, there's definitely some wasted potential there. We can get to that.
Okay, thing with... I feel like the pod races, I like the first couple minutes of it, but then it went on for way too long. I like, because it brought me back to the, going down the, trying to, the fight, the X-Fighter's trying to destroy the Death Star. That brought back that feeling, kind of. And that's the first Star Wars movie in a while, where you're like, you have the, like, this, if you have the stereo, you hear the roar of the engine in your ear, and it's like, and that's the first thing. That's the first time since episode 4 that I've had a feeling like that. So that's a good thing. Darth Maul, I liked his style and aesthetic and the feeling, but I think they made a major mistake by making him a silent villain. I feel like, okay, if you're gonna make him silent, then you have to do other stuff to give him a character. You have to do, like, maybe, like, subtle visual stuff, but you have to do something like that. They did nothing like that. And so, unless you're going to do that, you have to give him a dialogue.
Well, I mean, I think in this case, whether or not that's true, I mean, that could be true, like, in general, I think, like, in the case of in the movie, he ends up being a stronger character for being silent because he's surrounded by a lot of different noise going on from a lot of characters, and then you contrast him with Jar Jar Binks, which I'm sure you'll get to.
Okay.
And that makes him stand out more for not talking much, because he can't fuck up as much if he doesn't talk.
Okay. Well, I think you're saying that more out of fear of what he could have been than what he was.
Not so much out of fear, more of what I know he would have been if they did make him talk more. But you can go on with your thing. That was just my little side thing, but yeah. So, you were talking about how you like that, and you felt like he would have been stronger if he did talk more, so you can go from there.
Okay, so another thing, I liked Natalie Portman / Keira Knightley doing the body. To be honest, they look freakishly alike with that makeup and everything. Like, I couldn't tell the difference. See, that would have been an awesome twist if they had done it a bit. Like, I had figured it out because it was just a movie trope thing. But I felt like they could have, if they had done a little more subtle things, it could have been an awesome twist. And I felt like she played it well enough, and she was action oriented, and you knew she had certain goals and beliefs. Like, she was non-violent, and then she learned by the end that you have to take certain actions. So that's a good character arc. She was a good successor in the beginning to Princess Leia. That kind of action-oriented, leading female.
Maybe run that later, but for one, that's actually one of the stronger points in the movie.
Yeah, one of the stronger points. I like Qui-Gon Jinn. I like Qui-Gon Jinn. He was... What were your feelings of Qui-Gon Jinn?
He's this really chill dude. And it's like he's a Jedi, but that he finds some of their ways to just be bullshit. And he kind of goes around it often. And yet, despite him going around it often, he's a highly respected Jedi Master and part of the Council. And they know he kind of does what he wants.
Yeah.
That's entertaining.
He's probably the only person in the prequel. Like, they do a lot of subtle stuff where, like, mentions first character, and you're like, I get him. He's a rule breaker, but he's kind of an honorable dude. He thinks for himself. He's smart but fair. He does what's right even when he knows it could hurt him. So, it's like, you get this dude. You like him. And, unfortunately, I want to like Obi-Wan. I like him...
Maybe more in the second one.
I like the guy playing him. I felt like he could have been good Obi-Wan if he had better material.
Yeah.
That's another thing I like. What else? Well, I'm trying to... I like the silver ship thing. That looked cool.
Yeah. And then... I mean, I hate to kind of interrupt, but this had to be mentioned. It's not the ventilation shaft!
Yeah, that's one of our favorite lines.
Yeah. And that was damn awesome. I don't know if that was meant to be funny, but it was.
I like, I'm kind of at my end here.
Okay, fair enough.
I feel like I got a good, decent amount.
You did, which is impressive given what we're working with here. But okay, so I'll mention some of the things I like. I agree with the whole, Queen Amidala, Natalie Portman's character and that. that was a pretty strong point. I like that, we're introduced to a black Jedi. That was cool. And also other alien races, because by this point, we just seen like white dudes be Jedi, because there wasn't much left. And Yoda, but Yoda's just sort of there. You don't really think of him as a Jedi until this, actually, I feel, you see him talk about the Force, sure, but it's not the same, I feel. Because by that point, he's just like kind of old, senile guy. But, I like that you do get into more of how like it used to be. And I definitely enjoyed Qui-Gon Jinn's thing, because we talked a little bit about that, but it was definitely interesting, because, for all this stuff about rules that the Jedi have, they were so cool with him, and he broke it consistently. Like, he did just enough to stay in their good graces, but break it just enough to make it work. And it also, I like the consequences of that, because on one level, it's like the Jedi are so strict, and they create a lot of their own problems, and him breaking the rules in some scenarios leads to good things, but him breaking the rules as far as like training Anakin and all that, spreading that on to his own Padawan, that created some problems.
Yeah, I thought something else, but I'll see if we get to it.
Okay. And I enjoy Darth Maul's character, and partially, yes, I admit I like the silence because you're surrounded by characters like Jar Jar Binks in there. But it's not just that. Like, I particularly enjoyed like his style of fighting and having like a double-bladed lightsaber. I mean, that takes some serious skill, and to being able to take on 2 Jedi. So that was cool, and like I like how they did talk about the Sith more, but not as much as I would have liked. And and I didn't mind the pod racing, but there was definitely some bad parts in there, and I don't know if the good parts really weighed it out. But yeah, it had some cool things, and it was nice to see the effects for some of the things. And they had it had a cool the battle droids, the droidicons they call them, I think. So those were kind of cool. And also, it was like more on the planet, like the battles, so that was interesting in a way. Well, you do expect more space battles, but yeah. So, I mean, that's pretty much all I got for that.
Yeah, well, what I wanted to say was just the fight. The lightsaber duel was awesome.
Yeah.
Even though they kept interrupting it with the annoying Anakin, oh, I'm doing spaceship hijinks stuff, which is like, let's just get back to the lightsaber fight.
Yeah. See, that's what I mean. Like, I like the fact that he was able to take on 2 Jedi like that. It was really cool, because the way it started
and also,
to how it went.
And also Duel of the Fates.
Yeah.
Which is
Duel of the Fates was epic.
And introduced... So, yeah, they kept up the tradition of good Star Wars.
Oh!
Star Wars.
That's a no-no!
Good Star Wars music.
Yeah, so, yeah, that was pretty damn epic, and it was probably the most memorable track from episode 1. And you're right, it got interrupted way too much, because, we're watching that, because they do have that habit of, switching back and forth, but it's like, really focus on the fight. This is awesome. Go, keep on that. And it was just like, I don't like the way it ended, but I did like that. So, yeah, pretty cool all the way through. Because, you start off, you had this crazy environment to fight in, and then, yeah.
My thing, okay, so are we gonna get into what we hate now?
Oh, obviously. Alright, you can start that one.
Oh god, okay, we may have to cut ourselves off here.
Like, quite possibly.
Okay, I dislike that, there's a lot of character stuff, I dislike the, one character thing, like, they didn't spend enough time with Obi-Wan. There's a whole scene where there's like, basically, like, the whole part of the movie where he disappears. The Tatooine part where he's on the ship.
Yeah.
And I felt like he should have been the one interacting with Anakin a lot. Like, Obi-Wan should have went with Qui-Gon Jinn, went to the Tatooine, and been a part of the races and all that stuff if they were going to do it.
Yeah.
Because I would have liked, there could have been that interesting interaction where, like, Obi-Wan's kind of cynical, Qui-Gon Jinn's like, trust me, and, like, so they're having that interaction and everything, but, and he's being introduced to Anakin, and he actually starts to like the kid. Like, he starts off hating him, but he starts to like him, and then by the end he takes him on. That could have been an interesting dynamic. But it's like, we know Anakin's going to end up with Obi-Wan, so why are we limiting their interaction?
Yeah, that does seem weird. I mean, and even Obi-Wan himself seemed shocked by this. He's like, wait, you want me to train this kid? Like, I don't fucking know this kid. I don't want to train this kid. The Jedi orders again. Say, why are you throwing this kid on me?
There's that part with the trade business. Like, you just don't care about that. Because, no one cares about it. You care about like stopping the Death Star and stopping the Empire. You don't care about stopping the Trade Federation's embargo shit. That's been talked about. Oh my god. There's the horrible characters, Jar Jar Binks, and like the Gungans. Just not interesting. That part felt like an entire amusement park ride, and felt like let's do this detour instead of going straight to the palace. You had to go through the Gungan ride and all that stuff. Where I felt like if they'd gone through straight to the palace, it would have kept the momentum of the movie going. And I guess they were trying to make him like the new Chewie or something, side character, and it just didn't work. You want to chime in with some stuff?
Yes.
Okay.
Alright, I'll pick up where you left off. One of the things I really didn't like was Jar Jar Binks, especially. I mean, the Gungans in general, I wasn't a real big fan of. But it's also, in addition to the character just being boring, dull, stupid, unnecessary, just extraneous in every way. Because it's like, because it wasn't just one thing that was unnecessary. It's just like the whole damn thing. And then they just kept on perpetuating that, like, by putting him in later movies. But my whole thing is the motivation behind it. I feel like on some level, right, having the Gungans in there like that, having Jar Jar Binks, having Anakin as a kid, I feel like a lot of that might have been to maybe pull kids into it. But I know growing up, when I saw Star Wars, we see it on TV or, some pop-up video or whatever. I know one of the things that pulled me in was actually the action. I remember, like, being a kid, you didn't, when you play around, right? You don't play around saying, oh yeah, I want to be a Gungan, and you don't do that. No, you wanna get in that basket and act like you're flying a ship, or you wanna take your lightsaber and swing it around. You don't wanna do what the Gungans do. You don't care about the kids. Most of the time when I'm looking at these stories when I was young, I didn't relate to it by saying, oh yeah, there's a kid in it, so that must be cool. No, most of the stories that I like happen to be about adults.
One thing I found interesting about the kids' point of view is, like, I remember, like, the one of the people in Star Wars Clone Wars, he was talking about, like, how, like, you know how they kind of keep, like, Palpatine's identity is the Emperor, the evil Sith, evil secret in the prequels. Like,
Yeah.
Even though everyone knows he's...
Yeah.
Well, one of the things I found interesting was, like, the guy who's in charge of Clone Wars, like, apparently a lot of kids haven't seen, like, the movies of the original trilogy or anything. And so when they're watching the Clone Wars, they don't know Palpatine is a bad guy. And so it's, like, all new to them, and they love the stuff of like, oh, is Palpatine actually evil? We don't know. And I just find that interesting, but...
Very good. Yeah. Because it's tough to say what kids like and don't like, but I just know, like, me personally as a kid, I wasn't drawn in by the stupid shit. I was more drawn in by the serious stuff.
Yeah, I'm just trying to imagine, like, from the point of view of, like, a kid first watching episode 1, if he had no experience...
Probably would have thought that was stupid too. Like, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of kids out there who are probably like, really? That's stupid. But they probably would have liked some parts.
Yeah.
Because you gotta remember, like, when we saw it, right? We're both pretty young. It came out in 1999. We weren't that old.
Yeah, and the other thing, C-3PO and R2-D2 being in it.
Yeah, and C-3PO being invented by Anakin that was kind of weak. And who could forget the Metachlorians? That was weird.
One thing about the C-3PO,
Yeah.
3PO and R2-D2 being in it, like, I think I'd be alright with it if they had just did, like, a little subtle thing where they're talking about, like, maybe the Force brings certain people together for a certain reason. Like, the mystical thing. But they don't really go there. They keep it sci-fi-ish. And so then, when you're trying to think about this entire galaxy and the coincidences going about, the fact that, like, these two droids happen to be in all these scenarios, it gets, like, Forrest Gumpy.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so they're the Forrest Gump of the Star Wars universe.
Yeah, it does seem a little weird, because, like, oh, Anakin, who's supposed to bring balance to the Force, creates this robot, he interacts with this other robot, and they go on to be in numerous conflicts, throughout the years being important to them, that does seem very weird, a little far-fetched.
It's definitely, like, you could tell he's catering towards the casual. He didn't feel like introducing new characters and building them up. It's more like, here's R2-D2 and C-3PO.
Yeah.
It's like, and so then the casual person audience, like, hey, I know them. I've heard of them. Oh, it's R2-D2, C-3PO. I love those guys.
And then someone else comes along like, oh my god, you too? I know them too. Oh my god, we can talk that together. Yeah. But
You sound kind of weird there, but
that was the point.
What's your attitude tonight, man?
It's, what is gonna be my attitude? But, so, I mean, overall, though, as much as they admit it did have some good parts. It had some bad parts, too. And honestly, I think more than anything is probably the weakest of the new trilogy. And largely, partially, the reason why I think some of it sucked was just stuff like Jar Jar Binks and that whole nonsense. But the other thing is just like, in a weird way, even though if you remember some parts like really, really specifically, you could talk about them like we're talking about them tonight. It's actually a forgettable movie until you bring it up, you know? You know, when you think about Star Wars, you don't think about Episode 1. You don't. It felt like a completely different thing. And sometimes that could be a good thing, sometimes not. It's like, you could tell they took some experiments there, and they took some risks.
It felt like, you could start at Episode 2.
Yeah, it felt like a side story. That's what that is, more than anything.
You could start at Episode 2. Because, okay, so you know that, like, say you start at Episode 2,
yeah.
And you're just you never watched Episode 1.
You wouldn't have missed anything at all.
The only thing would be the relationship between Anakin and Padme, and you could kind of like infer, oh, they met before, and they have kind of past, and he has kind of a crush on her, and you just get that, and so you can move on. What do you think about the special effects of Episode 1, like the change?
They weren't bad. I mean, a lot of people, they bitch and they moan about the excessive use of CG, but that's a sign of the times. It's like, oh, well, get the fuck over it. Like, I thought they actually did have some interesting effects in there. Maybe it's dated some, but cool.
I think he went a little overboard.
Eventually, but...
I think in this one he doesn't do as much CG as he does in Episode 2 and 3. If you watch it.
There was a kid with a knit toy. And that toy had like a better model, so it was like, yeah, of course he's gonna use it more, but I see your point. It wasn't excessive, but I don't know, it was different. I like seeing something. I really like how the ships look, though.
Because I remember, like, when they're storming the palace, like, that I think that was a real set, most of it. Do you remember that scene? Like, where they're storming the palace? I felt like most of it was a real set, and, whereas, like, the later episodes, like, 2 and 3 feel very, a lot of it feels very fake. But, yeah, well, I didn't like the CG for Coruscant, because it feels very fake.
I thought it had an interesting look, though.
It has an interesting look, but it feels very fake.
I don't dispute that.
See, like, if you watch a like old sci-fi movie like Blade Runner, it feels like a real like kind of like urban sci-fi futuristic city. If you put it side by side with like Episode 1,
that doesn't hold up.
It doesn't hold up at all.
So yeah, I get that. I mean, but so you have any more to say about Episode 1?
Well, besides the kind of subtle racism thing going on with Watto and all that.
Oh, yeah.
You know, Jewish and like see.
See, I thought you were gonna say something about the Gungans, but you mixed it up.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the thing with Watto and kind of being like a dealer. Anyway, it felt kind of horrible. It felt very Michael Bay-ish.
Yeah. Okay, I will mention one thing that you mentioned about too. Like, what I didn't like, major thing I didn't like is that they made Anakin a slave in this one. I just thought that was weird more than anything else. And that, his mom was actually like a fairly horrible person, gambling away her and her son's life. And other slaves this dude didn't want to. I just felt very odd because we didn't know anything about Anakin before. It's like, why did you have to make him come up from that?
I always found it interesting
specifically. You know what I mean?
They always made the mother look like a saint, but you got the feeling like
She wasn't.
They always talk about how the mom's like saying, "Oh, she died" and all this stuff, but like they never really. I felt it would have been more interesting if there was like a more darker side to that relationship, and that would like, give more of an explanation for like why he turns evil.
Yeah, I mean, this whole turn could have been done very, very differently, and I don't think they explored too much. It's like, they want to paint her as a saint, but it's like, how can you possibly paint her as a saint? She gambled her life away.
Another thing, they don't really get into the consequences of being a slave.
They don't, because he gets freed, and it's like, I get that that's nice for him, but what about anyone else in that position?
Well, I'm saying, like, they don't show anyone like getting beaten, anyone getting killed because they're trying to run away, and so it's like, oh, you need to free him, but it's like he's a kid hanging out building like ships and working, and like it doesn't ever look like horrible.
No, and he gets a kick out of it. That's the thing.
I know being a slave is still horrible no matter what, but like they could have gone a little extra mile to give an incentive to the audience,
and it might have explained some things later on about his darkness. But here it's just like he happens to be in the tech stuff, and he actually enjoys it. He's a slave, but he doesn't mind it so much from what you see, and it's like, really. And again, you go back to the mom, it's like, yeah, she wanted him to be free, but it's her fault that he was enslaved in the first place, so why should we feel sympathy for this character? They didn't paint her in a good light, and they certainly didn't paint him either.
Another thing, okay, so if he's being oppressed, wouldn't that make him hate the government? Government and order?
But he doesn't.
I guess it is the Outer Rims and there's no government, so he thought maybe if there was government there wouldn't be no slavery, but I mean, I guess you could go with that.
Yeah, it could, but now you're trying to make him make sense.
But isn't the government that's putting in the stuff and then keeping the order and rules of the slaves on tap?
Yeah.
I mean,
it's not particularly well thought out, but I just thought that was a weird little thing that they put in there, and I didn't think
it didn't feel necessary.
It wasn't.
And it didn't really go
anywhere, because it didn't impact how he was later.
And it's weird, because like, if the mother didn't die a slave.
Yeah, she died free. That was the weird thing. She died free and married to some dude.
And so it's like, well, why'd you do all this? Like, I gotta understand how, like, the mother died a slave. But, another thing, why didn't they ever go back and tell them? Did they explain that?
Oh, well, you know they're not supposed to see their parents and all that.
I know, but, like, Obi-Wan couldn't, like, pick up, like, a few credits and, like, go over there and, like, pay for his mom and say, hey, you're free. You couldn't, like, say, hey, could you just do this favor for me as a friend?
Oh, yeah, Jedi don't care. I mean, I don't see that as, like, I mean, yeah,
just
that's
to be a
probably
good person.
I think that's an oversight, but I also think it was, like, I'm not surprised, because you could explain that just by the Jedi being dicks. That wasn't their point there. They don't have to care about the little people. They care about the little people all the time. You know? Then they have to say every little person for every little thing.
Another thing I actually like about it is you see like the bureaucracy of the Jedi and how that kind of leads to their downfall.
Yeah.
And how they're kind of stuck in their ways. So that's another point into it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, anything else about episode 1?
Now let's go to 2.
Yeah.
Alright, I think we might be here for a while if we keep up with this pace.
Quite possibly.